here, actually. I'm going to do that later. Good Mormon. Wah wah. My seminary teacher used to say that on Monday mornings when none of us were glad to be there. But I am glad to be here, and I'm grateful. Thank you, John, for inviting me to speak. On many occasions, I talked to him about the possibility of me being chased off the stage with torches and pitchforks, maybe being booed. He promised me that's not the case, that y'all are pretty cool, so I'll trust him. I grew up in the Mormon faith, a very devout member of the church, and my family, church on Sunday, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, the whole 9 yards. The topic of this year's theme, Many Paths, One Heart, really resonated to me that each of us have our own journey that leads to the one heart, which in my interpretation is love. I wasn't ever good at sports, very awkwardly balanced kid. My father just thought DNA meant that I could play basketball out of the womb, and nobody bothered to tell me that you switch sides at halftime, so I made baskets for the other team for about 2 minutes, and they won. So yeah, he had some learning to do, and so did I. And I had always known something was not wrong, but different in grade school on up. There was a lot of admiration of other men that I had, and of course, innocent crushes on schoolgirls. But on my mission, I saw porn for the first time on a bishop's computer. It turned out to be gay porn, so it also turns out that the bishop doesn't know how to clear his internet history. Or his wife. I wasn't, whatever. But when I saw what I saw, and I did see what I saw, I realized at that moment that this internal torture and conflict I had been fighting with since I was in grade school was all summed up into what could only be explained as my worst nightmare. This means I'm gay. And the nightmare was then turned into a reality. It was clear to me, since I can remember, that the leaders of the church I belonged to considered gays to be sexual deviants, that homosexuals stand as a mockery of the plan of salvation, and that Satan has a stronghold on people who have created something called the evil gay agenda. A few Thanksgivings ago, while I was living in New York, a cousin of mine from Idaho, bless her little heart, asked me what being a homosexual is like. And it's one of those things where after you say what you say, you think, dang it, I should have totally said something different. At first I said, well, I get up and go to work and make some money, go to the gym, come home, watch Netflix, and go to bed, and do it again the next day. What I should have said is, I wake up out of my coffin at midnight. And I'm really hungry, so I go convert a couple of straight guys down on the block corner. And if it's not enough, I go drink some True Blood at the 7-Eleven. And I go back in my coffin and wait for the next morning. But I didn't say that, dang it. But this agenda was likely to poison the minds of children and deteriorate the family. So this is like these alarms went off in my mind, like, I can't be part of this. This can't be me. But it was evident to me because I heard these things said from scores of conference talks and books and articles and policies that had been and continue to be written and spoken by a multiplicity of the church's prophets and apostles in unanimous voice over the decades. The adjectives and tones may have changed over the years, but the purpose hadn't. I realized then that there was no room for an openly gay child to become an openly gay missionary, to be in an openly gay relationship in the church, that the homosexuality is wrong, period. So after returning from my mission, I sought out clarification and a solution to my spiritual crisis from my spiritual leader, my bishop. He insisted to me that I was not gay and strongly advised me not to identify as such. He urgently recommended that I participate in an ex-gay therapy process that included weekly one-on-one counseling with an LDS family services therapist and participate in group therapy, which included attendance to firesides, reading scores of pamphlets and books, and expert testimonials, which all summed up that change was possible, whether in this life or the next, and that love and sexual relationships between two members of the same sex was simply akin to a struggle with alcoholism, a drug addiction, or an illness like cancer. It was during this process, in hindsight 2020, that I see that my identity as a gay man was removed from me, and instead I was simply a Latter-day Saint who struggled with a disease, a disorder, or an abnormality called same-gender attraction. I was told to date women, and it was actually an assignment from my bishop. So I dated this girl named Natalie Hill. She was from Orem, so to protect her identity, I'll call her Samantha. So before I disclosed my status, like it's an STD, you know, hey, Samantha, I caught same-gender attraction, but it's not contagious. Don't worry about it. I'm taking care of it. You won't get anything. I remember going to her house for Christmas Eve dinner, and it was a big deal because that's like third base for us in the Mormon Church, you know. And I was so excited to get her an imported Italian merino wool sweater for Christmas. And she got me a Celine Dion CD. So yeah, that was a tough, she got me, that's fine. But I was told that if I held true to the church and its leaders, that one way or another, the struggle that I had would diminish at least. And the joys of having a family and raising children could still be had in this life, maybe not, maybe so, if only by a successful select few. I was also told that the word gay was a verb and a social construct, and that you're only gay if you act gay on homosexual behavior. So after 2 long years of mental gymnastics, not much had improved by my way of my prognosis. In fact, it had gotten worse. I was having hot flashes every time I walked by my trainer at the gym. So whatever this male bonding therapy was going, it wasn't creating much of a fraternal healing for me, or masculine bond, because it was creating a deeper need to be in his arms. In fact, when it was clear to me that nothing had changed or improved for me or anyone else I had met in the process, I left the therapy group and the one-on-one therapy altogether and decided it was time to take a different path to that one heart and date someone I was attracted to inside and out. But neither of us were out, and we were both struggling with this thing between us. We weren't gay, we didn't want to label it, but we wouldn't sit next to each other at the movies, but we would share the same bed. That was a lot of mental gymnastics to do over the course of 6 months, but we tried the best we could given the circumstances we had with our family, friends, and the stigma and fear that we attempted to keep at bay from eroding our connection. Hold on a second. That all came to a screeching halt at work 6 months into the relationship when I received an email from his brother that Brent had passed away in his sleep from a heart attack. His brother only knew me as his friend, had never met me in person. He said the funeral would be held where he grew up in Oklahoma, and gave me an address if I would like to send a letter to be read at his interment. My world was shattered. I felt helpless, hopeless. I couldn't attend the funeral. His parents had no idea who I was. And my family, my friends, my employer had no idea I was in a relationship with him. I struggled to make sense of it. What had I done? What was I supposed to do? Should I go to the temple and do the work for him? Should I strike a deal with God to forgive Brent of our wrongdoing for the sake of me? And if I promised to obey every minute for the rest of my life, would he be saved? I would even go on another mission. And with no one and nowhere else to turn, I revisited my situation with my bishop. He could tell I was pretty shaken and upset. And I just flat out explained what happened, that I'd left the therapy and I tried to follow my heart, and this is where it led me. I felt completely lost and at odds with my circumstance, and I told him I needed spiritual guidance to figure out what to do from here. His response was critical to me becoming the man I am today. He told me that Brent was taken from me because I am a Latter-day Saint, a holder of the Melchizedek priesthood, and that I should know better than to have been in a homosexual relationship. He went on to say that this would only make my struggle with my same-gender attraction problem worse, since now I needed to begin the repentance process for my sexual transgressions. As he asked for details about my sexual relationship, I realized in that moment, stop. He's wrong. I don't struggle with same-gender attraction. He struggles with it. I left my bishop's office and eventually confided in my mother, who told me that she was disappointed that I thought I couldn't have talked about this with her sooner, and that now she will never meet someone who I loved, and to never let that happen again. So I proceeded to start my road to healing with a different path, a wonderful licensed therapist, unaffiliated with any church and unbiased toward any organization, as therapists are supposed to take an oath to be. Through this process, I realized that my church leaders and therapists there worked very hard to distinguish members of the LGBT community from members of the church who were gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender by removing our identity as such, and instead creating a subversive remedy, labeling it a same-gender attraction or gender confusion, the kind of terms I now would expect to be used by self-trained clinicians from the Dark Ages. I soon discovered that my church leaders were hiring attorneys and lobbyists to create a religious and moral objection to the passing of legal and equal rights and benefits for the LGBT non-members and members of the church. These conclusions made in my youth about the non-acceptance of LGBT families was confirmed yet again when the update of church policy and doctrine revealing the salvation of gay parents and their children, which was unanimously sustained. I wasn't at all surprised. I wasn't angry. I didn't throw mud, burn pictures, or desecrate what my family values as holy. I realized they had simply reiterated their stand by drawing another line in the sand. So, as a result, I realized that my identity does not belong to a church. My identity belongs to me. My name on a membership roll doesn't belong to my family's eternal hopes. It belongs to me. When I went through the process of name removal, my father was upset, as I imagined, but he quickly turned around and said, "This is ridiculous. What does a name on a piece of paper on earth have anything to do with me and you being a family in the afterlife?" He said, myself and your mom are divorced, but we're still married in the church on paper. Do you really think? No. I don't believe that the membership rolls is the exact guest list for the highest club in the afterlife. Thank you. But I also realized, just like any other organization that I belong to or belonged to, if I'm not being understood, if I am not being valued, If my happiness or someone I love or someone in my family's happiness is being threatened by the efforts of an organization I belong to, I should have the right, the dignity, and the self-respect to not only remove myself and my name from the list of their members and supporters, but the courage to share my story and not to speak ill of anyone or church leaders, but hold them accountable for their divisive words and actions, just as Jesus Christ did in his day. This healing process has also given me the clarity to say, without any hesitation, that conversion therapy doesn't work. And I thank God it didn't, because I'd rather be who I am today, standing here with you, than be someone I'm not. When I am told that I'm still loved despite my lifestyle choice, I now say that my religion is a lifestyle choice, but my sexual orientation isn't a choice. And my love life and who I love isn't a lifestyle. For me, being a member of the human race carries an enormous responsibility and purpose in life. Each and every day I wake up and a bishop first, and not what the neighbors think first. And contrary to what I was told growing up, I now realize that I can participate in the joys of raising children. Although, if Craig, you're in the room, that's not an agreement right now. I am still worried that I may not be able to handle diapers or tantrums at all. But it's an elating and wonderful feeling to realize that today I'm legally married to someone that I love. Something I never thought would happen and never thought was possible. And that love is legal and not counterfeit. It is equal and real and taxable. I'd like to play a short clip of our wedding, and then sing a song for you that I was going to sing an original, but I surprised John and am not giving him what I told him I would give him.
There are those who believe they're the best thing that God ever made, and they think all that matters is the consequence after the grave. They're so sadly mistaken and so lost in the river that breaks them. Will they ever have strength to withstand? Will they bury their heads in the sand? Will they ever have the courage to take a stand? Stand up for something, for it all or nothing. When in doubt, take a stand for you and for me. Stand up for something, and you'll see that nothing that compares when you stand up for something. Just stand up for what you believe, for what you believe, for what you believe, for what you believe. Two girls rolled up in one, and the children of the moon looked like a fork shoved on a spoon. They were part son, part earth, part daughter, part son. The grew quite scared of our strength and defiance, and Thor said, I'm gonna kill them all with my hammer, like I killed the giants. But Zeus said, no, you better let me use my lightning like scissors, like I cut the legs off the whales, dinosaurs into lizards. So he grabbed up some bolts and he let out a laugh, said I'll split them right down the middle, I'm gonna cut them right up in half. And the storm clouds gathered above into great balls of fire. And then fire shot down from the sky in bolts like shining blades of a knife. And it ripped right through the flesh of the children of the sun and the moon and the earth. And some Indian god sewed a wound up to a hole in the ground to our belly to remind us the price we pay. And Osiris, the gods of the Nile, gathered up a big storm to blow a hurricane, a flood of wind and rain, and a sea of tidal waves to flood up wind and rain to wash us all away. And if we don't behave, they'll cut us down again, and we'll be hopping around on one foot, looking through one eye. Last time I saw you, we had just split in two. You were looking at me, I was looking at you. You had a way so familiar I could not recognize, 'cause you had blood on your face and I had blood in my eyes. But I could swear by your expression that the pain down in your soul was the same as the one down in mine. And that's the pain that cuts a straight line down through the heart, and we call that love. We wrapped our arms around each other, trying to shove ourselves back together. We were making love, making love. It was a cold, dark evening, such a long time ago, by the mighty hand of Jove. It was a sad story how we became lonely, two late creatures. It's a story, the origin of love. That's the origin of love.